that altar, the incense, is truly that elevated, that powerful, that holy, it's Holy of Holies, why is it not in the place called Holy of Holies? Why isn't it placed in the Kodesh HaKodashim? Why is it placed outside? It's very confusing. On the one hand, the Torah, Moses tells us it is the most elevated, it is Holy of Holies. On the other hand, it is mentioned all the way at the end, and it is placed outside of the Holy of Holies. All of this, again, does not make sense. So to answer this question, we have to come to a new understanding of what holiness. And when we say holiness, again, we know it does not mean anything in religious terms. It means both for ourselves, an elevation, a unique and powerful elevation of each one of ourselves, our souls. What does holiness mean? And I think the mistake that most of us make is that we either believe or are caused to believe that the Kodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of Holies, is something that is beyond us. One of the greatest tools that the negative side, our negative side, convinces us is that we are not there. Yes, throughout history, and maybe we think we know some people who are Holy of Holies, are the most elevated, but that's not us. We struggle, we fall, we find ourselves sometimes in darkness, sometimes in light. But Holy of Holies, that's not us. And that's true to some extent. That Holy of Holies, as we said, that place in the temple, that is called the Kodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of Holies, was only entered once a year. Was only entered by the most elevated soul, by the Kohen Gadol, by the high priest. That Holy of Holies is not for us. It's elevated, too elevated for us. But what is revealed on this Shabbat, and a new understanding that we have to come to, is that there's a second kind, a second type of Kodesh HaKodashim, a second type of Holy of Holies, and that's something that we can and are meant to enter into. There is, as the Kabbalists explain it, Kedusha Ila'ah, this supernal holiness, and this Kedusha Tita'ah, this lower holiness. There's holiness, an infusion of light that comes from the upper worlds, that is beyond where most of us are at. But there is the lower holiness, the one that we awaken through our work, which is as powerful, if not more powerful and more important than what's called the supernal holiness. The supernal holiness, again, is represented by the Holy of Holies. That place only entered once a year. The secret of the altar of the incense, which is placed at the outside, represents and is the secret of our lower holiness, the one that every single one of us can and is meant to achieve. And one of the great reasons, and we have to ask ourselves this question, but one of the great reasons why we do not reveal that Holy of Holies that each one of us is capable to reveal is because the negative side wants to convince us there's only one kind of elevation. There's the pure, supernal, Holy of Holies type of elevation, where you are, what you've done, what you continue to do, you'll never be able, you do not merit, have the ability to connect to that Holy of Holies. And the answer that we have to tell ourselves is that's true. But that's not my aim, that's not my goal. There's a lower Holy of Holies, which is actually more important than the supernal one. The fact that we, every single one of us, no matter what we've done, no matter where we've fallen, no matter where we find ourselves now, the Holy of Holies is there waiting for us where we are, is the secret of the altar of the incense, the secret of this Shabbat. And it is something we have to make the distinction, because I think most of us do not understand it or believe it. When we look at elements of elevation, when we look at what it means to be holy, to be truly elevated, we have this pure view of it, which again is only half true. We know this week, not coincidentally, we are going to have the connection that is called Purim. There's another day that has those words, connection, elevation, on this in the year. It's called Yom Kippurim. We call it Yom Kippur, or if they translate the words, it is a day like Purim. So there are 2 days in the year, one that is called Yom Kippur or Yom Kippurim, a day like like Purim, and there is a day called Purim, the actual source. If you're comparing two things and you say this is an apple and this is like an apple, clearly the apple is better and this is 99% like it maybe, but it's not an apple, it's only like an apple. We have 2 days of the year, one of them called Yom Kippur or Yom Kippurim, that is like akin to Purim, and then we have Purim. If you ask most people which day is more elevated, which day is more important, everybody would say Yom Kippurim. It's the day when we fast, we don't eat, we don't drink, we make connections all day and night. It is, again, historically, when the temple existed, when the high priest would enter into the Holy of Holies, that's the elevated day. What's Purim? Yes, we know it's a day of connection, but we drink a lot, we eat, we don't spend all of our day in prayers and connection as we do on Yom Kippur. Which is more elevated? Which is more holy? Obviously, Yom Kippur is more holy. Purim is, okay, a day of connection, maybe an elevated day of connection, but not on the level of Yom Kippur. But the Kabbalists say the opposite is true. Purim is the more elevated, more holy day, and Yom Kippurim is a day that is almost like Purim, but not quite. How do you make sense of it? How can it be that a day that objectively most of us would say, if we were asked which is more elevated, which is more holy, Yom Kippur or Purim, we would say Yom Kippur. No eating, no drinking, praying all day. That's the holy day. That's the elevated day. Purim is the lower day. But that's because we still live in that old understanding that holiness, or Kodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of Holies, exists only supernally. But now we come to a new understanding. Yes, there exists this supernal holiness that is maybe something that is not meant for all of us. Unique souls throughout history were able to enter and connect to that level of Kodesh HaKodashim. But that's not what's important, because there's another level of holiness which we can connect to and are meant to connect to every single day, all the time, no matter who we are, no matter where we are. Therefore, we asked a few questions. We asked, why is the discussion of the altar of the incense, which is the secret of our holiness, our lower Holy of Holies, why is it all the way at the end? Because it's for the people, for those of us who are at the end, not at the top, at the mountain with the great souls as Moses and Abraham and Rabbi Shimon. They can enter into the Holy of Holies. But don't listen to the negative side that says, therefore you have no connection to the Holy of Holies. Your life, your work, your light cannot elevate to the degrees of the Holy of Holies. Not only can it, where it can go and what it can reveal through our work and our change and our correction and revelation is more important for the world than the light of the Holy of Holies. The Kabbalists call the day of Purim the most elevated day, and Yom Kippur akin to it, lower than it, almost like it. Because what happened on Purim? On Purim it was the people, Mordechai and Esther, who were the leaders, but awakened everybody from below who were at their end. They thought they were all going to be killed. They thought it was all over. They were at the end. And Mordechai and Esther awakened them to this understanding. Don't think that because you're at the end, either physically or spiritually, you can't in this moment immediately connect and awaken this most high light that is called Kodesh HaKodashim, Holy of Holies. And it is because Mordechai and Esther awakened from below, what's called by the Kabbalists Itaruta Deletata, awakening from below, that the light of Purim was revealed. On Yom Kippur, one person enters into one place by himself. It's called Itaruta Deleila, awakening from above. It's nothing to do with the work that humanity does, nothing to do with the work that we do. That light shines from above, and it is unique and it is for very few. But don't make the mistake of thinking because there is that type of Kodesh HaKodashim, there's no other. And there is. And that is the first secret of this Shabbat. the altar of the incense, which is the secret of the lower Holy of Holies. It is called, therefore, the last verse on this Shabbat says, Kodesh HaKodashim Hu. Us, talking to every single one of us, no matter how much at our end we are, no matter how low we are, Holy of Holies. Every single one of us. And that's the question we have to ask ourselves on this Shabbat. Do we believe that? That where I exist right now, the Holy of Holies is with me? Or do we listen to that other voice that says, no, not you. There's other people more elevated. Look throughout history, maybe look at people you know. They're Holy of Holies. They can enter into that place. Their work, their light can reveal that supernal light. Not true. It's only half true. Yes, there is this other place called the Kodesh HaKodashim, the most elevated place. But there's also, and this is the secret of, the altar of the incense at the end of this week's portion, all the way at the end, we ask, why at the end? Why not in the discussion of the rest of the tabernacle? Why isn't it placed inside the Holy of Holies? To remind us, to let us know, to awaken us to this truth. Where you are right now, at your end, at your low point, Kodesh HaKodashim Hu. It is Holy of Holies. You can enter right now from where you are into the Holy of Holies. And remember the negative side, and that's why right after we read that verse, Kodesh HaKodashim Hu, you, I, every single one of us can enter into that Holy of Holies. We read Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Remember what the negative side, the force called Amalek, tries to awaken within you. It tries to make you forget, even though you read it. It's the last verse of this week's portion. It's the last verse you just read. Immediately Amalek's going to start saying, no, not you. Not where you are, not what you just did, not what you've done. Not true. Not true. Kodesh HaKodashim Hu. At the end, and that's why, by the way, Purim is in the last month of the year. We know the year begins in Nisan, and Purim is all the way at the end of the year. Because the light of Purim and the light of this Shabbat and the way to defeat really Amalek, that force of doubt and negativity in our mind and in this world, is by reminding ourselves of the last verse of this Shabbat. Kodesh HaKodashim Hu. Every single one of us, where we are now, are one step away from the Holy of Holies. And yes, not to that other Holy of Holies, the one that's in Jerusalem, the one that's in the innermost sanctum of the tabernacle of the temple, that is only entered, that's the supernal holiness that comes from above, entered only by the high priest once a year. That's the place of Moses, of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, of Abraham, all the great souls. They could enter into that one. We might not be ready or able, but that's not important. Because the light that needs to be revealed both for ourselves and for this world does not come from that place. It does not come from the supernal Holy of Holies. It comes from the lowest Holy of Holies. And that's the first awakening, really, that we have to, it's about remembering. And that's why the Shabbat is called the Shabbat of Zachor, or remembrance. Because the negative side does not want you to remember this. Every single time, because if you knew this, if any one of us really lived with this awareness every day of our lives, it would all look different. The way we did our work, the way we treated ourselves, the way we treated others would be completely different. If we really knew that in every action and every word, we're one step away from the Kodesh HaKodashim, from the Holy of Holies, in our ability to reveal such great light, in our ability to create such great change, we wouldn't allow ourselves to behave often in the way that we do. But the Amalek, the negative side, has already implanted in our mind this idea. There is, yes, this holiness, this Holy of Holies, that's there. That's in Jerusalem, that's once a year. No. Where we are today, right now, in every moment, we are one step away from the lower Holy of Holies. Then don't let that negative force and negative thought, the negative force of Amalek in our world, tell you otherwise or make you forget otherwise. Remember that where you are, where we are right now, no matter how low at the end of the year as Adar is, at the end of the reading as the discussion of the altar of the incense, where we are right now, we are one step away from the Holy of Holies, the lower Holy of Holies, but the one that exists with us all the time. I'd like to share with you a story. It's one that's, very often when I tell stories, I want to make sure that it's 100% accurate. This is one that it's not clear if it's 100% accurate, and therefore I won't mention the names of the people involved, but it has an important lesson for us on the Shabbat. During the time of the Ari, Rav Isaac Luria, the great Kabbalist, there lived a person who wrote songs. Not songs, but spiritual songs, songs of elevation. And the Ari, in speaking to his students, made it very clear that he could see that the songs and the poems written by this person were tremendously elevated. They were very powerful. They revealed great light and they caused great joy in the upper worlds. Interestingly, there's a book, again, that it's not 100% clear if it was written by Rabbi Chaim Vital, but there are those who say that it was. And in that book, there's a section within which he seems to indicate that this person, who the Ari, the person writing the poems and the music, did some really negative things in his life. And when you first read that, it's confusing. How could it be that the same person upon whom the Ari put so much praise, at the same time Rabbi Chaim Vital, the Ari student, writes that he did these negative things? How can you make sense of the two together? Because for most of us, and I think this is the way most of us think, if you see, and maybe it's not so much for ourselves, sometimes even for ourselves, but you hear this all the time, right? I saw this person do this. Oh, that's it. They'll never say a word that I'll believe. They'll never teach me anything that I need to know. I saw them do this one thing. And after they've done it, they're done, as far as I'm concerned. We do it also to ourselves, right? We do something so bad, and usually we're more forgiving for ourselves and for others, but even for ourselves sometimes. I just did that. Forget it. My day is done, or my week is done. I messed it all up. That thought, especially as it refers to other people, is not coming from the positive side. It's coming from some sort of false righteousness that we have, but it's not coming from Amalek. It's not coming from the true essence of our soul. Because the true essence of our soul, as we learn on the Shabbat, teaches us what? That no matter what somebody has done, no matter what we have done, no matter what negativity, no matter what negative action a person has done, he or she are always one step away from Kodesh HaKodashim, from the Holy of Holies. And again, think about it, because sometimes we give ourselves a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt, but even for ourselves, not so much. But certainly for other people. How many times have we said, I saw him or her do that. That's it. There's nothing. They're not going to teach me anything anymore. They're not going to help me anything anymore. I know who they are. Why? One thing or two, you saw them do two things. How many things have you done? Have you crossed yourself out of your book as well because you did that one thing? It's a silly thought. It's not true. All of us in our generation are at a step away always from the lower Holy of Holies. So whether it is for ourselves, give yourself that benefit of the doubt. Yeah, I did it, it was wrong, and I've fallen, I'm at the end, but I know now that even at my end, even at my lowest, I'm only one step away from the Kodesh HaKodashim, from the Holy of Holies. And you see somebody else do something really bad, that you've judged them, and even if you're right, but you've judged that what they've done is really bad, that doesn't mean that they're not one step away from the Holy of Holies. It doesn't mean that they can no longer teach you, they can no longer help you. Every single person, ourselves, and as we look at others, always, no matter how low, no matter what they've done, one step away from the Holy of Holies. And the same again with this person at the time of the Ari, assuming the story is true. The Ari could look at this person, at his work, at the music that he was writing, at the poems that he was writing, and saying that it is awakening tremendous joy in the upper worlds. Even if it is true, as his student then writes, if he wrote it, that this person also did some negative things. Because the Ari knew this truth. That yes, people can fall and do terrible things, and the next day they can be the most elevated. The next day they could be the Holy of Holies. And that's the first awakening, the first secret of this Shabbat. No matter who we are, no matter where we are at the end, always, always one step from the lower Kodesh HaKodashim, Holy of Holies.